All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for coming in this difficult time after lunch. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a good break. And let's start from the beginning. So being here today, first PyCon EMEA, with this amazing lineup of Python speakers was a little intimidating. I've been around for a long time, but it's always very hard because, what will you say at the first PyCon EMEA after Travis Oliphant or Michael Ford or Sebastian or Carl came on stage or, and inspired you and made you laugh, made you learn a lot of incredible things. If anything, I think I will probably make you laugh. I will probably make you cry if things go wrong. This talk is very, very hands-on. You'll see a lot of code running. And so there's a lot of space for things to break. So if things break, have a laugh. I'll be crying. Clap, and let's start it. So first of all, I want to start with you. How many of you are actually technical? You hands-on coders? Nice. How many of you are Python coders? Nice. How many of you have more than 5 years of experience? Wow. More than 10 years? Sweet. Of these, how many of you are from the region? You consider yourself from the region? 2. Great. 3. So the reason I ask those things is to understand why you're here. And hopefully you're here to learn something new, to get inspiration, and to learn something that can help you change the world or change your world, right? And that's my goal. So a little bit of me, I had to put my professional picture before, and then talking about it, trying to be the hipster type of picture. So I'm a software architect at Anaconda, which means really that I've coded a lot, and then the last 4 or 5 years I've been mainly not coding that much, and helping teams do their things and ask questions like, why are you doing this? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Yada, yada, yada. But in the last 6 months, I've been really focused on something new. I think that Peter, CEO of Anaconda, co-founder, and I have been talking about for a long time, called PyScript. And then through the years, I've done a lot of work with Python and the Python community. I've been chairman of the EuroPython Society. I'm a PSF and EuroPython fellow member, co-chair of EuroPython and the PyCon Italy conferences, and co-founder of the PyCon Italia Association as well. So I want to start from this chart that you've seen a few times this conference. And Python, I don't want to spend too much time on it. And one undeniable thing is that Python is popular today. It is the most popular language in the world. And you can see through history, through this chart, and I'm not going to use the pointer because I don't want to have problems with the clicker, but you can see at some points in history where, in the history of Python, where the language popularity goes up. And usually you can identify events, right? Like when Guido joined Google. So a big corporation supporting the language and an enterprise looking at it as, well, maybe we can use it too. The era of the web frameworks, the era of DevOps, the era of machine learning, AI, and all of this. But how is it possible that today Python is the most popular language? Think about it. Python is not a very welcoming language for the most popular hardware platforms in the world, handheld devices. It's really, really hard and painful to run Python on tablets or your phone. Also, not the most popular, not the most easy language to use on the most popular OS or virtual system, which is your browser. Really hard to run Python on your browser. So out of the two most popular software or virtual and hardware platforms, Python is not the best solution. So how is it? It's because of the language. It's because it was born as an easy language. It was born for education. And then it got a lot of smart people on it because it was less painful to do crazy things, you know. So wouldn't it be cool if you could run Python on the browser? Just write like this, you know. So that's where PyScript comes in as a new alternative to write Python on the browser. So we'll be talking about PyScript itself, what is it, what it's not, how to PyScript, specifically PyScript for data science, and then PyScript for data visualization. One disclaimer, PyScript is not a framework for data scientists only. It's not for data visualization. It's actually not the main target, but it's the easiest target to start because we know our users. So this also other disclaimer. It's very under heavy. It's very under heavy changes. It just started literally a few months ago. It's a very complex framework in the sense that it glues together a lot of pieces. And so we encourage people to play with it, to use it, to report bugs and all of this, but you should expect some changes while we go. Also, be advised, this talk is extremely experimental. It's way more likely that I will fail and we'll have a laugh together. But you know, we're just human beings living on a rock in the middle of the void. YOLO. So if you don't risk, you don't get rewards. What is PyScript? So PyScript is really a flexible framework or platform. We'll talk more about this. Created with pluggable components and some components readily available. It allows you to run Python on the browser with a fairly complete or a fairly rich ecosystem supported by Pyodide. I will talk more about this as well. It allows you to interact from Python to JavaScript and JavaScript to Python. It allows you for environment management, so you can install your packages, you can install your dependencies, your modules, and things like this. Why? Why would you do this? First of all, why not? Right? Second of all, as I said in the beginning, as a Python community, we have a huge liability. There's a really great keynote at PyCon US from Russell Kit-McGee talking about beware and about this specific problem, right? Through the era of computing, languages succeeded or failed not because they were powerful, not because they were successful, not because they were the most flexible, but a combination of factors. And our industry is changing. And if we don't look at in the future, we can fail. You know, Python, we tend to talk a lot about performance and how to make things faster and how to make things more parallel. We also need to think at our roots. Python was created to teach people programming. How can you teach kids if they spend hours frustrated trying to install it somewhere? And after they have code running, it's really hard for them to deploy their application somewhere else and to reproduce their code somewhere else. So we need to fix this problem. PyScript at a glance. It's just HTML, meaning that you can run things on the browser and that's it. You can run things on your HTML and only. You can do more. You probably want to do more, and you want to, you know, your applications is not only about code. It's about the problem you're trying to solve, the data that you have available, the tools that you have available to you. So it's much more. But in theory, you can just, as we said, we saw in the first slide, just drop HTML tags in there and use Python. We want to bring the whole Python ecosystem in the browser. So we don't want it to be just a transpiler from Python to JavaScript and you not be available to use everything you have in the Python ecosystem. But we have a really, really important mission. And I'm, in the first introduction of this conference, we heard from the deputy of the Ministry of AI about how Dubai is trying to get 1 million coders, right? Our mission is to actually bring programming to the 99% of the population, to make it available and accessible. And today we're probably 1% of developers. It's really a hard, overwhelming challenge. So we want to make development friendly, the web a friendly and hackable environment where people can just drop in, code, one click, deploy, share with others. We are very far from there. So that's why we built PyScript. Getting started with PyScript, all you need to do is this. You just need to add your dependencies. You probably don't even need the CSS, but so you just need to load PyScript.js, and that's it. There's more to PyScript versioning. As we are progressing, we said we are going to break your code, and we are sorry. But we're trying to make things a little bit less painful. So we have a latest release, which is the latest stable release, always available. Alpha is the first alpha that we released at PyCon US. And if you try things there, it's going to always be alpha, and it's going to be there. We have unstable, which is basically a real-time version of what is in GitHub main. So if you want to be at the edge and try the latest things, you can point to that. And you can always point to pin versions. So if you're developing your application, you know it's that version, you should pin. You should probably always pin, to be honest, if you're deploying anything to production. So as we catch up, and PyScript is only 5 months old, tooling around it is going to come. We are so excited that there is support for PyCharm in for PyScript in PyCharm. Visual Studio Code also has plugins for visual syntax highlightings and things like this. So it's really exciting. Talking a bit more about how to PyScript. You basically need to import your dependencies on the head of your page. You can use the PyScript tag as anywhere in your code, just like you would do with HTML tags. And that's mainly it. It looks just like a traditional web page. I know what you're thinking. I know. It goosebumps. But we're not Pythonistas specifically. When we get the comparison between Python and PHP, it's really cringy. And I feel you. And I'm mostly Italian. It's mostly like, is it pineapple on pizza? Which it's really hurtful. It's not. It's not. This is just the easy way to get Python running on the browser. You shouldn't be doing what I showed you before. If you want to run, you want to have code that is serious and for production, and even just not for production, but for your own sanity, you want to have testable code, reproducible code, and all of these. You should create Python files and test them with your toolings, PyTest, unit tests, all of those things. And you can do that in PyScript. You just need the PyScript tag, and you can load your modules from there. If you have dependencies, you can load your dependencies in your PyConfig, where you specify your packages in your dependencies, your modules, your custom files, and things like that. We want really to encourage best practices. As mentioned there, it's the web. So it's a little different than your normal Python that you run in a normal file system. And we'll see a bit more about this. So one of the issues that you might encounter is that you encounter CORS issues if you are loading things from other servers and stuff like this. When we announced PyScript, it was one of my career's highlights, right? It was all over the web, Twitter, YouTube, and all of this. And my daughter came one night to me and was like, "Dad, I finally know what you're doing, and I saw PyScript trending on TikTok, and that was my career highlight for her, which for me as well, it's really great to, she didn't really understand what I do normally, but it's way better than, oh, you spend all day in meetings and you laugh and you have virtual parties with your company. So that's the win. But seriously, this is one of the memes that was around the web, right? PyScript is gonna kill JavaScript and all of this. It's obviously very wrong. One thing that I really despise in the tech community is that we always want to reinvent the wheel. It's always this versus that. And we, as a community, larger community, we should be trying to work together. And PyScript and JavaScript, it's really a combination of two worlds that can work really, really well together. So with PyScript, which, again, it's a framework / platform, it's written in TypeScript, where you can use Python and JavaScript in the same code base. So today, JavaScript developers can use NumPy, can use Pandas, can use Bokeh, can use a ton of tools that the Python ecosystem provides and the JavaScript doesn't. Vice versa. Python developers have been dreaming to use D3, for instance, for visualization. They can now do it. So PyScript is not a drop-in replacement for JavaScript, and it's just additional. All right. So I talked a few times about platform versus framework. And this is an addition last minute that I was talking this morning with Michael Ford, and he was we're talking about plugins and how PyScript is pluggable from the beginning, and he mentioned Peter saying something like that a system built on top of plugins from the start is a kind of an indication of engineers who don't know how to decide between a solution A or solution B. Translating, they don't really know what they're doing, and let's put plugins on so that we can support anything. In reality, plugins are related to, it's a specific design choice, especially in this field. It's really hard for us to predict all usages of PyScript. We keep learning about things that people want to do and how they envision things differently than what we thought at the beginning. So for me, I'm using framework as a system that allows people to build applications on top of it and then ship their applications. A platform is a slightly different variation of this. It's a system that allows people to create frameworks on top of your system. So think of React or something like this for the web. It's really a platform where people can build frameworks on top of React, but you can also build applications on top of React. It's very similar. I'll keep saying this. Things will break. Be aware. It's a work in progress. But we're really careful trying to put ourselves in our users' shoes and the community shoes. So let's talk a little bit about PyScript features. So this is a very professional architecture, PyScript architecture, right? Diagram. What allows it to be is a lot of the work of Python. We usually say Python is built on top of giants' shoulders, sits on top of giants' shoulders. You got it. The same for PyScript, right? It's possible because amazing people started and then we had an abstraction layer that is called mscripton that basically add a POSIX-like system on top of it that allows C extensions to exist on WASM. And that's how CPython and other C dependencies can run on the browser. PyDite is a collection of things that allow you to run Python on the browser, and it's been around for many, many years. PyScript is just a glue framework. It uses a lot of things that other amazing people have done. And we want to keep this. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to add value to things. And when we can, we're gonna change upstream. We want to collaborate with other projects. We want to make them better as well. So a little bit on the difference between PyScript and Pyodide. This is how you see things from PyScript, and you can see Pyodide is the main Python runtime that we use right now. We just landed in the latest release an abstraction runtime where we can actually glue other runtimes. So we hope to support MicroPython soon, CPython, official CPython on WASM and things like this. And it supports a full-ish Python standard library. A few things aren't available, and a few things are not yet available because the browser is a different file system, is a different operating system. So things like multiprocessing, threading, sockets, they just behave different on the browser. I'll skip this really fast, but Pyodide it's evolution from Iodide, which aims to basically run Python on the browser. Initially, it was based on scientific computing and the Jupyter stack, but the key thing here is the browser is seen as a ubiquitous virtual machine, right? And you can drop it around, and that we are taking advantage of this. So if you would be using Pyodide without PyScript, this is how you instantiate your environment. With PyScript, it looks like this. You can see how it's more user-friendly, and it's easier for you to do this. And you can actually do this in your HTML file. And the other case, you need to get your hands dirty with JavaScript and all of those. So let me introduce you a new tag in PyScript that is called PyREPL. And it aims to be a REPL, interactive REPL in the browser. So you can actually, do things and run in real time. And one thing about Python is that it has a mantra. So in the REPL, you can see what's this import this about. And it just executes on the browser. So it's actually not a scripted thing. It's running Python. And if you type import this in your interpreter, this is what you're going to get. So another cool thing about Python, if you try to import anti-gravity, it's a cool community, and it keeps changing. And it will pop up your browser window with this cool comic. And if you don't know XKCD, I highly recommend it. But PyScript has its own cool anti-gravity thing because we can. So you can import anti-gravity, the patched anti-gravity, and you have you're displayed with a similar comic, but we can make things cooler and do something like make it really fly. And it's basically manipulating the SVG in real time and changing its position and things like this to actually make you fly. So let's try with a little more complicated example. I'll do a quick thing right now just to get my code ready. So I'm going to copy this code here real quick, which is a script that uses matplotlib to display some cool graphics, and it's going to execute, hopefully, and it's going to plot that thing in the browser. No server-side computation or anything like this. So let's do some visual data viz demo time. We're going to be showing things on top of matplotlib, Seaborn, Bokeh, Panel, NetworkX, D3, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not an image. This is a real application that is basically computing the feature correlation on one data set and using scikit-learn with pandas, NumPy, et cetera, to display this with matplotlib. I'll show you the code real quick. This is not the full code, but this is mainly what it's doing. It's importing the libraries with the pyenv and then defining the features. I'm going to risk and use this. It didn't break. So usually, this is just Python. There's nothing different. The only different thing is this element thing that actually, be aware, if you try this, soon we're going to break this. That API is just me getting something really quick, but we'll design it better. But at the end of the day, you just return your element, and because it's a matplotlib type of object, we can understand the MIME type that we need to generate, thanks to the amazing work that the Jupyter community have been doing for a long time on displaying things on the browser, and we can just display that beautiful chart. Same thing for this. This other example is running on the browser. It's computing the same data set with a different library called Seaborn, and it's displaying data right there. Again, no server-side code is running here. Everything is running on the browser. The data is being loaded on the browser, computed on the browser, and then displaying. This is how the code looked like. Very similar. Just environment initiation, just normal Python code. There's some things in between here, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, this all here is the same thing you would be doing in your laptop locally and displaying those things. This is another plot using bokeh on the same data set. Bokeh is highly interactable, so you can do things like zooming, panning, et cetera, et cetera. And there you go. Okay. Code looks very much like the rest. In this case, bokeh is a peculiar library where it also has a JavaScript backend, so you need to import your bokeh front end part with this, and so there's an extra importing on that part, and then the rest looks just like the usual. You have your imports, you're doing your stuff in Python, and then basically with bokeh you embed it. This is a little different, but bokeh. It's also more powerful than other libraries. It enables you actually to run in WebSockets, and we will see a few examples, and do things, streaming things are highly interactive. This is yet another example on the same data set. This is a tweaking between bokeh and matplotlib. I will skip it really fast because I think we have more interesting examples to show. This one is basically using NetworkX and matplotlib to display this dense, fully connected network on the browser. I had another example that was showing this with D3, but I will be showing another example with D3 that is a little bit cooler. So as we put this thing out in the wild, the community has been amazing and has been doing a lot of things that are beyond our imagination, and help us understand how this can help actually our own community, right? So Dylan Castillo built this pandas cheat sheet that is highly interactive on the browser that any user can use to learn about pandas. So I'll do this real quick, hoping that the demo gods are not going to be angry. And this is his, basically his cheat sheet. And you can say, I want to learn about join data frames, merging data frames. And this is the example. And this is the results. And you can do things like changing the data, exploring, and things like that. And you can see how your documentation can now become a highly interactive experience to your users without having to force them to read your docs and then, oh, let me install your library on my machine, install Python, and all of those things. Another cool example that Dylan did, they tweeted about a few weeks ago, was, well, let's do a data viz cookbook where we can help people learn about data visualization in Python, right? For instance, it's comparing pandas versus matplotlib versus Seaborn and Plotly Express. So for instance, this is how a line chart would look like in pandas. And if you choose matplotlib, this is the code for it. If you can execute, and it will change accordingly. Seaborn is a different library. Pandas by default uses matplotlib, so that's how it looks so similar. If you click on Seaborn, it updates that as well. Plotly, it's a little different. And there are all sorts of things here. I won't spend that much time because we actually have cooler demos, or, well, we have differently cool demos to show. So getting back to the presentation, Jeff Glass, who's been amazing the last months, actually, played with PyScript. And what if we took Rich, which is a CLI library for Python, amazing library if you haven't seen it. Rich and Typer are a pleasure to work with. What if we put those things in the browser and we make them live and working? So this is his tweet that shows the GIF of it running in real time. Philip Rudiger, who's also been contributing a lot to PyScript. Actually, the renders that you see displaying plots and things like this is thanks to the work of Philip. He's been working with, we've been core developers of Bokeh together. He's been a core developer of Bokeh, Panel, Holoviz, other amazing libraries. He's been contributing a lot, and he's been playing with it. So he ported a lot of the Panel examples to PyScript. Panel is a visualization library on top of Bokeh on Python that allows you to run really cool graphics and plots on the browser. So this is his tweet, and looking at it in real time, this is an example of Panel running on the browser. I'm not entirely sure if this one is running on top of PyScript or on pure Pyodide. And we are working on making things more seamless. But either way, this is a Python application without any server-side code that is highly interactive. If you actually increase the speed, you can see how things are going faster, blah, 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 blah. This is another one that is running the game of life on a period of time that you can stop, run, and interact with. This is another example of HVplot on a data set that allows you to explore your data. All of this, for the sake of time, I'll go ahead. This is the whole Panel visualization, Panel examples, application examples on the browser. This one is really cool, actually. It's an interactive data set that you can interact with, and it has a play function that allows you to run your data and explore how things are evolving in time. Let me go back real quick. So actually, before we get this, I'll show you this one, which is really cool. It's basically showing ice cream data on top of D3. This was not possible until PyScript, well, you could do this with Pyodide. So to be fair, it was not available until Pyodide offered us the opportunity to work with D3. But now you can use D3 from Python directly. Another good example, and this is highly interactive as well, has some cool animations. This is a cool example comparing data sets of Star Wars characters and interactions between different movies. And this is using D3 as well, which is pretty cool. But the demo of all demos today was this presentation. It was totally written in PyScript and as a plugin. And actually, it's a plugin on top of a plugin. The demos that you saw in real time on the REPL, that was PyScript running on top of PyScript, an extension of PyScript. So pretty much Inception. And if I have time, I'll show you the code later. But I really, really, really want to thank the amazing people behind PyScript. And I will not capture even the 20% of people who helped, but I'll try. We have, after we released at PyCon, we've been working really hard at Anaconda to build a core team. But I want to really stress this. PyScript is not an Anaconda product. It is not an Anaconda open source product. It started within Anaconda. We are really committed to make it happen and to support it, but we really want to grow it as a community. We really want to have a governance model where Anaconda is just one of the contributors. And I have to say it's a big win for us. This month, a few weeks ago, we actually welcomed 2 new core developers who've been amazing at helping and interested in growing this initiative. Jeff Glass and Paul Everett, thank you. Your work has been amazing. And in the meantime, we hired a bunch of really talented people to help. Antonio Cooney, who's been a long-time Pythonista, Mariana Mireles, Mador Tendon, Nicholas Stollervy, Peter Wang, who's the brain with me. We're the parents of PyScript, but he hasn't been coding that much, but he's been really, really good at supporting us and giving advice. And Peter Wilson, Philip Rudiger, Tad Patrick, and Yanis, all maintainers of PyScript. But it's really, really because of the work of other amazing people, like the PyDI team that has been working on this for many years. The CPython core devs that have been working on WASM, like Christian Himes and Brad Cannon. And I'm probably forgetting others, and I'm very sorry for this. The web assembly community, the MicroPython team, and actually I want to give a shout out to the MicroPython team and the Inscript and Forge, Pyodide, all of those here, and Beware, who have been helping on working together to improve WASM, Python on WASM. Of course, Tim Berners-Lee for inventing the web, and then many, many more. And I want to really close with the message that the community matters. We've heard a lot of talks about how small contributions can change things, and this is really true. We welcome contributions. If you want to help with just documentation or comments or providing feedback, it's very welcome. One idea can change the world. A Dutch guy invented a language many years ago, and we are here. And so you can do the same. Thank you all, and thank you. Special thanks to Valerio, who actually did most of the work of this presentation and helped me really, really well. Thank you.
I'm so pleased the demo gods were in your favor, Fabio. What a wonderful talk. I'm very excited about this. My first professional job was working with IronPython, and one of the things you could do with IronPython was you could run code in the browser. So my second job was writing line of business apps that ran in the browser with Python. That was 12 years ago. So it's great to see the rest of you catching up. Okay, anyone have any questions for Fabio?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the talk. It's really amazing to see this happening. I have a couple of questions regarding the virtual machine itself, the browser. So one of them is, how do you manage to work with the data types that the browser provides you, especially with data visualization? The integers are not the best strong of how this works in the browser, and also performance. If you're able to also use the profile mechanisms that Python has and leverage that in the browser. Thanks.
Great question. So the question was, how does it work from the runtime point of view? How types work, and especially when converting types that are from data sets or JavaScript and things like this to Python. And then this. Okay, so on that side, it's pretty much provided by the runtime, and Pyodide has a FFI side of it that allows proxies between Python and JavaScript and vice versa. So the most primitive types are really well supported. For most other things, there's a proxy function that will expose your object on the other side. A lot of it is actually going down layers to WASM versus JavaScript. And so this is where it connects between each other. The question will also be, once many other languages, so Python is just the first, and will probably be always the primary language that we want to support, but would be really cool if in the future we could have a Rust runtime or a R runtime and have that work somehow together with Python. One of the main problems we will have is type transformation and translation between languages. So it is a big problem. Right now, most things really work, but we will have to explore that. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, Fabio. Very nice talk. Thank you. I was wondering, you mentioned that you wanted to, you have as a goal to have Python on the mobile.
Yes.
So in order to get Python on the mobile, of course you also need access to all the different sensors that you have on the mobile and all these things. Is that something that's being worked on, and how far away are we from that?
Great question. So the question was, we would like to have it running on mobile. Are we actually looking at having access to mobile or the mobile ecosystem and mobile resources like camera or the file system or things like this? So Russell Keith McGee, who's been working on Beware for a few years now, has been really helpful with this, and we've been talking a lot together. One aspect of this is that WASM is well supported on mobile, so all browsers actually work on your phone, and they have WASM support. And some more than others provide access to those resources. So on that level, that's one thing that we're looking at. Russell has been also exploring the relation between PyScript and Beware. So it actually, one of the examples that we have available is a Beware application written in Beware that translates to PyScript. One thing that we're thinking about is actually the opposite. You write an application in PyScript, can we use Beware and Briefcase to package it and have a native-like application on your mobile that you can just install? And I think it's feasible, but it's really a green field. We'll see. Other yeah, we had a question like there.
Hi, Fabio. Thank you for the lovely talk. Yeah. So I have two parts to the question quickly. One is philosophical, one is factual. Yesterday's talks, we learned about how Python's getting faster, and it's a lot of changes going under the hood. And with things like PyScript coming around as it gets improved and launches mainstream, do you see a scenario for Python developers in the future, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know the timeline, where it becomes a complete developer ecosystem, wherein a person starting out with the language does not have to refer to JavaScript at all and will be able to achieve everything? This is one part. And if yes, by when do you think is this likely?
Great question. So the question was, do I see Python or PyScript becoming a primary language where people can just develop on it, and the performance side of it, and then time estimate. So actually, that's part of the previous question that I didn't answer, right? Performance. So past loading time, it performs quite well. It boils down to WebAssembly code, which performs quite well. We have a huge performance problem right now with loading things, right? All of those ran smoothly because I already had things loaded. If you are loading a few hundred megabytes of Python libraries in the browser, it will take time for you to load them, one on the network layer, but even that is not the major bottleneck. It just takes time for you to run Python on WASM. It takes time, the code to actually run. So there are a few things that we are looking into to fix the problem. One, the Python community itself is looking at making things faster and cacheable. We're considering, what can we do to the language where we can have a build phase, where if you're using just 10% of the libraries that you are importing, can we do tree shaking and prepare a package with all your dependencies really well optimized, so reduce the size of those. Another thing is, as I mentioned, multiple runtime support. MicroPython is strategically one of them because it really runs instantaneously, whatever. And so you don't have all the loading time, and it has a lot of really cool libraries like PyGame0 and other that are basically a smaller version of the full-blown library that you can have access real quick. The other side of it is also we are looking at web workers to support parallel execution and stuff like this. But if you want to just create a website that is a content website, like that a lot of people use JavaScript for, I don't see a 1 year or two, maybe, I don't know, 2 year solution for this yet, just because of the state of the art, right? So depending on what you want to do, yes, you can be a full Python developer and do things on the browser without knowing any JavaScript. Actually, that is our mission. And we are actually also working on parallel things to support that. And I hope we're going to present soon. But there's no one right answer to your question.
I think we have time for one more question.
This is very mind-blowing to see this happening in the browser. Maybe a follow-up question to the gentleman there. So the libraries we're loading today, are they getting fetched from PyPI? And is there any plan to have an equivalent of CDN, like what we have for JavaScript, to basically accelerate this?
Great question. Where are we loading those libraries from? You can load them from local or from files or for your server. If you provide just the name of the libraries, because we are using Pyodide, it will point to PyPI. And well, Pyodide comes with a set of libraries already that will just be readily available. And the most important part of those are the libraries that have C dependencies. And those need to be built for WASM. So you need to build them for Pyodide. Everything else that is pure Python, you can load from anywhere. It defaults to PyPI. And yes, CDN type of things, I think they're very feasible. Most of the work there is just have a cached server, and I'm pretty much sure that PyPI should provide things like this. But this is also another area that we're looking at helping and improve. Thank you. That's it. Thank you all. And if you have questions, I will be around. I also have stickers if you want. So thank you.
Thank you, Fabio.